Here's a short video for those of you who need to set up your attendance marks report for the school analytics system, who need to set it up for a new academic year. Here's how it's currently set up. So go up to Reports and Design Report, and then open an existing report. And there's often a bit of a pause here, but it should come up with a list of the reports that you've already created. Go to Focus, go to Student, and the Power BI reports are normally prefixed with the initials PB. Your school may be slightly different. You see, I've got loads in here. But here's the one for the previous academic year. My previous academic year was 21-22. So what I want to do is make sure that School Analytics and Power BI is picking up the attendance marks for 22-23 instead. You'll see I've actually created a 22-23 version of this report, but I'll assume you've not got one of those pre-created reports there. And I'm just going to open up the report for the current or the just past academic year here. So we open this report up. It displays this rather blank looking screen, but the important bit here is to go to the section here that says Data Fields, tap on it, and then this tells us what Sims is going to export into the CSV file. Well, it's a very simple report, this one. It only has 4 columns on it: the external ID, the mark date, and whether it's a morning or afternoon session. It's just possible that if you've got COVID subcodes, they may appear here as well, but it's just a simple report for the majority of schools. And all we need to do is highlight the sub-report here. And when you highlight the sub-report there, you'll see it gives us access to this line here, which is where we've got the dates that make it apply to one particular academic year. And of course, what we want to do on here is change those. So we can modify them and just change them. The easiest way I've found to change the dates is just highlight the year and up it by 1, just pressing the up arrow key on my keyboard there, and take the next date and increase that by 1. Again, just pressing the up arrow key on the keyboard. Doesn't make any difference, prompt at runtime. If it is ticked, just untick it. It doesn't make any difference though, and click on OK. Now, one last thing to consider before we save these changes is the default output location, which is down here. I'm going to click on it here, and this tells us the default file name and the default location for that file name in your directory structure. Now, the obvious thing you need to do here is maybe give it another name. So change this to reflect the current academic year, which the current academic year is 22-23. That obviously should reflect these dates that you've set on the data fields down here at the bottom. So that will create a file called marks2223.csv in whatever subdirectory you've got listed here. The subdirectory there will be a subdirectory where you want to accumulate lots of different CSV files, one for this academic year, one for the last academic year, one for the year before that. Last year's CSV file you'll need to keep there. Obviously it's not going to change ever again, because all the marks have now been registered for that particular year. So you can leave last year's as it is and just make sure that this new report creates that CSV file output in that same subdirectory. So we've given it a meaningful name there, so we know exactly what's going into there. Now, there is another place where you may be specifying the name of the output file, and that is in the batch file that you are running this automated report from. The majority of schools will run this Sims report via an automated batch routine. And in that automated batch routine, there will be a line, and the name of this file will be included as a parameter on that line. Now, here's an example of the kind of file that you will probably be running that automates the Sims reporting side of the process. And they are very long batch files, but the important bit is right at the very bottom, where you'll find 2 or 3 lines that begin by calling this program called commandreporter.exe. One of these lines will actually call commandreporter.exe there with the name of our report. So after /report, it will have the name of the report that we just created. So yours, when you first go into it, may well have last year's academic dates in there, you'll need to change that so it refers to the new report that you've just created. And the second thing you need to check is where it's sending its output CSV file to and what it's calling it. So on my example one here, that's the name of the folder that Sims will send the CSV file to. So that needs to reflect your attendance folder, which will be different, and also the fact that the actual file name needs to be something for the current academic year. So that's the name I've chosen to represent the marks file for the current academic year. The actual parameters at the bottom here, you may well not have them. They're not absolutely essential. This particular part of the line is essential, but you should have the first half of that command. And if you've changed those two things or checked those two things, made sure that the /report section here refers to your report, and make sure that the /output section there refers to both your subdirectory and your new file name. If you've got that right, you should be good to go. So all that it leaves now to do, if you've not done it already, is to do a file save as. I'm going to make a copy of this, give a file save as, give it a different name. Like I say, make sure that name corresponds with the name you put after /report in the batch file. I've already got one called 2223, so it's flashing up red. But on your system, if you've not done this before, it should already be there. Unless, of course, you've already got one for 2223, in which case you're sorted.